If you've been watching the news, or even just watching this channel lately, you've undoubtedly heard about the so-called resurrection of the previously extinct direwolf. Now, it technically isn't exactly accurate to call these animals direwolves. They're genetically modified gray wolves that resemble direwolves. But there's no question that we're moving closer and closer to a world where we can genuinely bring back animals that have gone extinct. Now, there are going to be more than a few issues with this idea. Even ignoring ethics, species usually go extinct for one reason or another, and just because we can bring them back doesn't mean they'll be able to sustain themselves and avoid going extinct a second time. But in terms of can we rather than should we, it really seems like we're getting there. Now, like I do with most things, when I was thinking about the implications of this news, I started thinking about how this will affect cryptozoology. About a year ago, I was wondering how the advent of generative AI would affect the field, as our ability to evaluate potential evidence of cryptids, photos, videos, etc., would obviously be affected. Now, we might be, eventually, dealing with a world where cryptids, or very close approximations, can be created in a lab. Now, taking gray wolves and altering them to be more like dire wolves isn't exactly the final step before creating 9-foot tall ape men, neo dinosaurs, or real life werewolves. But there's something to keep in mind here. It took thousands of years to go from humans creating agriculture to the first powered flight. It then took less than 70 years to go from the first powered flight to landing someone on the moon. It took less than 30 years to go from the first tank to the first atomic bomb. The rate at which technology progresses increases rapidly over time. Genetic engineering that could create a Bigfoot in a lab could go from science fiction to science fact a lot sooner than you might think. As the technology needed for genetically modifying animals like this develops and advances, I think the odds of some eccentric billionaire being able to create their own lab-grown monsters will become increasingly likely. Now, I won't give you the full investor pitch, but I think that there would undoubtedly be a big enough market for a zoo where you can see animals previously thought to be confined to overactive imaginations. Obviously, there would be a lot of ethical concerns, not just with the creation of these animals, but also with the idea of keeping a creature as intelligent as, say, Bigfoot in captivity. But I can't really tell you what regulations would end up looking like for these sorts of projects. Now, one of my first thoughts about what a future where there are lab-grown cryptids looks like is that it will effectively end any interest in the search for those cryptids. I mean, if we already have artificial ones, will there really be that much of an interest in finding the genuine versions? Even worse for cryptozoologists, if we do find a genuine specimen, if one can be created in a lab, I don't know if we'll be able to authenticate the animal and prove once and for all that whatever cryptid we're dealing with really exists. For Bigfoot researchers, over the decades, we've gone from having to wonder if a photo we're looking at is a guy in a suit, to having to wonder if a photo we're looking at is a Photoshop job, to having to wonder if a photo we're looking at is an AI-generated image, and in the near future, the issue will be wondering if what we're seeing with our own eyes is a natural animal or something that was whipped up in a lab somewhere. But what do you think? Will there ever be lab-grown cryptids in our lifetimes? What will the fallout be? Let me know in the comments section below.